Achieving success with risk management. In construction, risk management is a very key buzzword. It's used a lot. I'm going to put a little different spin on it today. My name's Scott Peper. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Mobilization Funding. And today I want to talk about risk management and how it impacts your cash flow. To start, understanding risk management in construction. Typically, you're thinking risk management is safety concerns on a site. Do we leave our ladders out? Where do we park our vehicles? I'm going to touch on some of that, but I want to touch on how those things and what you can do as a business owner actually directly impact your cash flow, which ultimately turns into the profit of your business or not. It also turns into whether you are going to sleep better at night or not. Key things around cash flow. So let's talk about a few of them. First and foremost, we're thinking safety on a job. What kind of safety and training protocols are inside your business? Is it part of your core values? We're thinking insurance. Are you managing and monitoring the cost of insurance as it increases? If you're purchasing more and more vehicles and automobile insurance is going up, that's going to be a significant cost increase. These are things that are going to impact your cash flow. If you have an accident and it's just a single claim of an accident and it doesn't put someone out of work, or they're not going to be permanently out of work, there's a difference between an accident that has just injury claims and an accident that has someone out of work and there's claims paying payroll. Knowing the difference to that can significantly impact your rates and significantly therefore impact your cash flow. Lastly, we want to talk about the financial risk management, not just the project, but the financial risks. Look, there's a lot of money moving around on a construction project. There's subcontractors, there's payroll, there's equipment, there's materials, there's lots of vendors. You may have a good IT management protocol, you may have a good financial system inside, but maybe some of your vendors do not. And you want to make sure that you're not sending money or writing checks to not just folks that are your typical vendors, but you want to make sure they're not defrauded and ultimately sending money to someone that defrauded them. And unfortunately, it's your responsibility now to deal with not just your financial management, but everyone else's in terms of fraud. And putting systems in place to make sure you have backups to backups and systems. And we're going to talk about that. Inside our business at Mobilization Funding, the reason it's so important for me to talk about risk management for construction is because inside our business at Mobilization Funding and all the customers we work with, there is a significant difference between the customers that have active safety training protocols for their employees for job-related projects. There's also training for financial acumen and fraud. And then in addition to that, they're doing safety and training around vehicles and driving vehicles. And anyone that's driving a company vehicle, any company that we see that has active training and education protocols for their employees have a significantly lower cost of insurance, significantly lower risks of claims. They have significantly less claims. And in addition to that, therefore, they have a much better cash flow because they don't have these unexpected increases in cost on things that they can control inside their business, which ultimately impacts their gross margins and ultimately impacts the cost of a project for them, which then therefore increases or decreases their cash flow on a project, and that hurts them. So these things about risk management and the education and training around it are very, very significant. And we see a great majority of our clients who have active programs in place have a significant reduced cost, which therefore has a better increased cash flow for them. And we're going to talk about some of those protocols right now in our next segment. So let's talk about those strategies for successful risk management. First is safety. On a job site, safety training protocols, OSHA certifications, other certifications from all the different types of organizations that you can have that are applicable and depending on what scope of work you perform. Roofing companies focus very heavily on safety training to make sure that you're attached to the structure, right? If you fall and you're a roofer, that's a problem. You don't want to have those type of accidents because they can be significant and they are much higher costly and they have a greater impact. If you're just on regular step stools and falling, there's a total difference of that. And knowing insurance companies know that, and they're going to price you for that. You also want to make sure that you're actively training your employees, one, because You don't want them to fall. So they need to be put in the best safety measures. Showing them and educating them and repeatedly doing so, not just once to get a certification, but do it, not only get the certification, but do it with the intent that you're doing it because it's important for them to keep their life. And it's important for you to know that they can go home to their families, people that are counting on them, their loved ones. So is there a difference between the intent to do something just so they have the certification versus the intent to actually do it because you want to send them home safely to their families? And if you're not actively thinking that way, I really strongly encourage you to start thinking from really what's important to them as a human and not just what's important to have as a certification on a project. And that subtle difference, which I don't think is so subtle actually, but that difference makes a huge impact to your program and your safety, which ultimately will lead to your risk management. So those types of safety protocols are in place. You can do extra. Just because you have only a certification need once a year per se, or there's certain continuing education, how you incorporate that continuing education, do you let your employees just figure that out on their own, or do you bring them all in once a year, once a month? Do you have continuing education that's extra and ongoing that you utilize to make sure that you can make sure that everybody knows and understands on the time for the business? Those are the types of things you can look at, and those are the best practices we see. Let's talk about financial risk management. There's a lot of costs to a business that sometimes seem burdensome and annoying. And I'll give you one. I hate paying for an IT service. I hate it. It drives me insane. I don't like doing it at all. It's actually not cheap. It's really frustrating and it drives me nuts. Okay? But that monthly fee that we pay is certainly warranted to the IT company. And if you pay for it long enough, the things that they catch and what they're capable of finding for you and the systems they put in place and just making sure they set up computers correctly, they set up phone systems correctly, they put and keep the updates moving along, the knowledge they have to what type of spam is out there, what type of fraud is out there, what type of programs that can impact your computer. I promise you the fact that they prevent those systems or those problems from occurring, even just one time, more than pays for their service. But when you get their scope of work and you get their bill every month and you look at it, you think, wow, that's a lot of money, but for what? It's for things that I promise you are worth it. You just don't realize them until there's a problem. And you're much better off proactively hiring an IT management company to come in and manage your systems and your hardware for you before you have to have someone defraud you. And that expense far, far, far exceeds the impact that of the price that you pay for an IT management company. So there's one, for example. Two, anybody that's actually touching your bank accounts, it's really good to use the multi-factor, two-person type approval system because it's a lot harder for someone to defraud you, either that's engaging with your company or inside your business if you make it more difficult. And just simply having two people have to approve something or one can create it but a different person has to approve it, it's just a great way to keep honest people honest. A lot of times fraud isn't done in a criminal act. Fraud's done out of desperation, and desperate people can tend to do things that are outside of their character. And so some of these simple methods, although they may be a little less efficient for you or your business, they actually help keep everybody safe, including you, including your business, and including your employees, and including anybody that might be going through a real tough time, that might be tempted to do something out of character. It'll keep them from doing it. So those are some systems financially. In addition to that, when you send wires or you're writing checks, how you protect those and making sure that there's very systematic, concrete programs and systems and processes for how you do that, who does it within your organization, and that you can directly tie back to who did what inside your group for any check or any ACH or any wire is a very good system to have in place so you can find where problems occur. That's another great way from a financial perspective and system. And then lastly, you have a finance team, they put transactions in, they use a controller in your team maybe, right? And they may have an accounting manager. But use an outside accounting firm to do your taxes, of course, but see what kind of services they can offer you. Maybe they can do a reviewed set of financials for you on a monthly basis for a very minimal amount of cost. And what does that do? Again, it doesn't mean you don't trust your accounting folks. It just means they're going to have a different set of eyes that can help look at your books and catch things that may not work. Not from your team, but maybe there's just financial items that aren't proper. Maybe those financial items, the way you're depreciating something, the way you're accounting for something, just anything that changes and ebbs and flows in that business might be beneficial to you from a tax perspective that they can be looking at one time a month every 30 days versus one time a year every 365 days. They'll catch things and they'll find efficiencies for you versus just looking one time a year and doing taxes or even quarterly. So those are some suggestions I have from the financial aspect. Now we're going to transition to actually implementing some of these systems. And I want to go through just a few that I think are pretty effective and just about any business or any size business can put in place. First is the things you can control inside your own business. Let's talk about your core values. Core values should be way more than something you just have on your wall. They should be something everybody knows, they should be something everybody understands, and they should be something that triggers decision-making processes for you as a business, such that any person from the CEO, founder, executive, all the way down to the employee that was hired yesterday, they know exactly where they can go to make decisions off of. And those decisions should be based on your core values. Now, I can do a whole video on core values, but why am I bringing those up for risk management? Well, if your company has purpose and your company has a set of values and you incorporate safety and training and health and wellness, and most importantly, I care most about you going home to your family and your loved ones safely, and it's one of your core values, it's going to be real easy to implement a safety training protocol. It's going to be real easy for people to understand that the risk associated to not doing the safety training or the education around it or building a system or process to make sure that it stays forefront and center for all of the team, it's going to be really easy for them to forget. But it won't be easy for them to forget when it's tied directly into the importance of your core values and you make it a part of your team's mission and decision tree. The second thing would be to use your professional services to the best of your advantage. Don't just use your accountant only to do your taxes. Use your accountant to find out what best practices there are. If you're using an accountant and you're their only client, they're probably not going to have enough perspective. But most accounting firms have multiple clients, and of course they do. So what I'm saying is utilize your accountant and your accounting services to find out what are the best practices for financial risk management. What is everyone else doing? Tell me about some of the problems you've seen other people have and how they fix them. Even if they're not problems you have, you can proactively go into figuring those out. And then you can use those professional services to implement these systems and processes, or they can share best practices with you. It's like having a paid consultant that you're already utilizing, but you're just not utilizing all aspects of them. And you can do the same exact thing for your insurance advisors. Meeting with your insurance company once a year at the time of renewal, or sending them an email or if they just send you an email and they're just saying, here's the renewal for your new services, for your insurance again for the year, you're not effectively using your best insurance advisors the way you could, or you have the wrong insurance advisor. You want to be meeting with these folks early and often to understand what are the best practices, what do you need to know coming down the road, where can you save money, how can it be more efficient, is there any type of training programs I should be doing? If I do some of these training education programs, will they reduce my rate? What are my mod rates for my workers' comp? What's impacting them? Is there any way to reduce them? What is the timeline to be reducing them? These are all things that your advisors that you are paying already can help provide to you for information and education, just without doing anything else or not out of no other additional expense out of your pocket. They can help you with. Use them to come in and maybe teach some of these classes and training so that you're learning yourself, but you're also teaching your entire team versus you having to learn on your own and then only you teach your team. There's some advantages and benefits to bringing those people in front and center, and they can actually understand from other voices inside your organization as to why, or outside your organization as to why you are doing something, why something is so focused. And then lastly, include all of these things in your core values. I'm going to reiterate that. It's really important to focus on your core values of your business early, often, and ongoing. Because when you don't these types of things just start to create holes in your business. They create holes in your culture, and your company and your team, especially as you add more people, they don't know what to follow. They follow people or individuals, but they're not following a set standard that everybody else is following. So you want to set these standards, set these values, have your team and leadership team reiterate those standards and values so that everyone else knows exactly how to buy into it. And it's something they can know and they can go home and feel comfortable with every day, feeling supported. Those are the types of things I think you can do right away to implement these risk management strategies, which will increase your cash flow by not only reducing cost, but also eliminating risk and situations that can cost you significant money that otherwise will have to be made up for with your profit. In conclusion, we've talked today about risk management and how it impacts cash flow. We've talked about strategies that you can use to implement these things directly into your business. And we've talked about how not doing so can directly impact your cash flow, not only on a project, but also inside your business at the expense of your insurance claims, at the expense of your employees, at the expense of financial fraud, or worse, at the expense of one of your employees' lives, particularly around safety or vehicle training. Focus on these things we've talked about today, implement them into your business, and let those risk management strategies enhance your cash flow of your business, putting more money in your pocket. I hope you liked this video. I hope you found it super valuable. If you did, please click subscribe, share it with some friends, share it with your other business owners, and I look forward to talking to you guys again. God bless you.